Good morning. I am at work and I had a thought this morning, and I think it's worth sharing because it's about ministry and being called to do ministry, or being called to do a work, or whatever term you want to use. It's not an easy task. It's not easy. It's not easy accepting the call, even if you know there is a call. And then it's not easy moving forward in that call, even though you accept the call. And so, yes, I know that God has called me to pastor. I know He's called me to liberate. He has not called me just to liberate same gender loving people. That is not my total calling. My total calling is to liberate same gender loving people, as well as religious leaders who are operating out of yesteryear theological dysfunctional beliefs. And so it's a challenge for me to move forth in ministry. When I was younger, I had a ministry already called In His Presence Ministries, where there's healing, deliverance, and restoration. And even then, I toiled with the call. I was literally standing at the sink in my kitchen washing dishes, and I heard the Spirit of the Lord say, it's called In His Presence Ministries. And it was so audible until I turned around, because I thought I heard somebody behind me talking. And then the teaching from my former pastor, my birth spiritual father, said to me that if God spoke to you, then He'll speak again. Just ask Him. And so I turned around and I started washing dishes again. And in my spirit, I say, God, whatever you said to me, say it again. And a few minutes later, after I finished washing dishes, I turned around and I started walking through the dining room to head to my bedroom. And God spoke to me again and said, it's called In His Presence Ministries, where there's healing, deliverance, and restoration for all. And I remember dropping to the floor and I just began to cry, because I knew that God was calling me to do a work. And the ministry went on for a couple years, maybe 3. I know definitely 2. And it was powerful. The ministry was powerful within itself. And then I stopped. I stopped doing the work. Because one, I didn't feel I was adequate enough to do the work. I had the power of God and the anointing of God behind me to do the work, but I didn't feel adequate enough. I didn't have a leader. I didn't have an apostle or bishop or someone to oversee the work that I could be accountable to. And so I stopped. I also stopped because I felt like being a same gender loving or gay man or homosexual, whatever term you want to use. I hate both of the latter terms. I traditionally only say same gender loving, but for the sake of this conversation, I felt like God made a mistake. Like, you could not be calling me to preach the gospel, because I'm same gender loving. I love men, and the scriptures teach against that. And so I stopped, and it was like I stopped doing that. Then I stopped going to church. And in one of my previous videos, you find out that I gathered all of my Bibles and concordance and all my other literature for learning. I gathered it all up and I put it in a black bag, and I was living in downtown Baltimore on Packer Street, and I remember pushing it down the sewer hole because I just didn't want to do the work anymore. I felt like I fasted and prayed and asked God to deliver me from being same-gender loving, and he didn't. And so I just stopped. I'm at work right now, for people that are wondering. But every church that I joined after that, I ended up being in leadership. I ended up being an adjutant to the pastor, or over a ministry, or, you know, I was over the prophetic fold at one church because God had blessed me with the gift of being prophetic and being able to hear the voice of God and speaking into the life of people. Then I was over the teaching ministry because God has gifted me with the ability to read his word and articulate it back to individuals that would help them to grow in their relationship with the eternal. Just to say, to name a few things. And I would, you know, just kind of do the work. And I knew for a long time, I wouldn't say I would call it the P word. I'm going back a couple years ago. Pastor Sheila Gainey is my spiritual mother. And we wouldn't use the P word. She knew she was called a pastor. I knew I was called a pastor. And we were both like, I know that I'm called to do the P word. And it was hilarious back then. But we never stopped believing that we were called to be pastors. God, I look sleepy. My eyes are red. And so what happened is God spoke to me again a couple years ago. This is 2018, July of 2018. So God spoke to me maybe 3 years ago while I was serving under another leader who had supposedly an inclusive ministry. That's beside the point. And God spoke to me and said that it is called Truth and Love Fellowship. And I'm like, Truth and Love Fellowship? Wait, what? What do we? No, we ain't doing that. No, sir. I literally told God, no, we ain't doing that. Because I didn't want to be responsible, because part of operating in ministry and operating in the position of a pastor means that I am now responsible for the souls of people. And I don't want to be responsible for the souls of people. I don't want to be responsible for my own soul. I do it, but no, I don't want to be responsible for a herd of ants crossing the street. Because if the car comes and y'all don't move fast enough, I'm going to run past and leave y'all. That's just real talk. For me, it's not about being seen. It's not about wearing these clown costumes. It's not about that for me. It's about helping people develop a relationship with God and helping them to matriculate in that relationship and be all that God has called them to be, and allowing God to oversee and govern their lives, to pull together a group of people that God can talk to and empower to do great and mighty works for him. That's what it is for me. And so my challenge even right now is I started Truth and Love Fellowship, and I started having Bible studies and things like that. And people offered their homes to me. Like, you can have Bible study here as much as you want. Just let us know when you coming. We'll make sure the house is ready and it's clean and all this other stuff. And I'm like, okay, great. And we were having Bible study regularly. And then it became a challenge because some people didn't want to come to people's homes. So then I started having Bible study in the community at different locations. And some people showed up. And God did a work. He started speaking in the lives of people. But it became a thing of people are starting to follow me like, whoa, this is turning into something. I was at people's houses and, you know, one of my nephews said he had a dream and that we were in a school building and there was, what? I had this robe on and there were people in the audience and the congregation, and I'm like, yeah, I hear you. I ain't doing that. No. And so you have to understand that ministry, pastoring is not about, I'm always trying to pick the right words. So when I'm looking off, it's not that I'm lost of words. I just want to pick the right ones. I never want to come off as being condescending or anything of the such. Pastoring is not about power. It is about empowerment. It's not about power. It's not how many scriptures I can quote. It's not about how many people I can gather in a location. It's about empowering people to do, to be, and to have that relationship with God. And so my challenge, I posted on social media, you know, I've been asking God, like, what is it that I'm supposed to do? Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And I keep trying to run from it. Not trying to run. I run, like, hard. Like, I just stopped. Like, I just stopped having Bible studies. Like, cut off. And the people that were a part of the Bible study, and I'm so sorry that it happened that way. I'm fearful. I'm very fearful about the work that God wants me to do. I'm very fearful about that. And I need to apologize to some people. I need to. Because it was never my intent to set the people up like that. I'm afraid. I am afraid to do the work. I'm afraid to pastor people. I'm afraid of it. And now God brought this to my mind. I need to go and apologize to these people. Let me write this down. Wow. But it's not an easy task. You know, I was talking to a young lady, a trans woman, on Saturday or Sunday, and she was talking about that she felt like she was called to preach. And I'm like, wow. And you felt comfortable enough to tell me this, have this conversation with me. And then I have a daughter that's trans, another girl that's trans. I know she's called to preach the gospel. And I'm like, what are you doing? And so the point of this video is to put on record, put it in storage in a space where it can always be available for other people to understand that it's okay to be afraid of ministry. It's okay. I feel like I could cry right now because I'm afraid, even though I know that God has called me to do the work. I'm afraid to do the work. I'm afraid to do the ministry. I'm afraid to pastor. I'm afraid because it is not about, and I said this earlier, it's not about, you know, how many people you get. It's not, well, that's a concern of mine too, to start a ministry and then nobody shows up. The reality is I know that people are going to show up. Where they show up at, I don't know. But I know that people are going to show up. I know that. But to be responsible for the souls of people is a hard job. It's a hard job. It's a scary job. I never want to offend God's people. I never want to offend God. I never want to not do what I'm supposed to do to please him. to please the Eternal, to please the Almighty. I never want to let the people down. And so it's a hard work. It's a hard job to do. And I'm also in school, and I'm in Bible college right now. And one of the lectures I was listening to on last night, the gentleman was talking about the Jordan River, and I'm gonna skip past most of the story. And he was talking about, you know, from the book of Genesis, how he was talking about the book of Genesis, and how when it was time for the children of Israel to cross the Jordan, and the Levitical order, or the priests was carrying the Ark of the Covenant, and they got to the Jordan. The Jordan that we see today is not the Jordan of the biblical times. It was much deeper. It was the current was much stronger than what we see it to be today. And he was saying that it was a matter of the mental state of the children of Israel and the priests was, you have to be so committed to doing the work. Because he brought up this, he said the Jordan was so deep that the people knew, the priests knew, that when we stepped down into this water, it could very well overtake us. It's going to overtake you. And he brought up the fact about being in ministry. Anyway, it's going to overtake you. But I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But the water is going to overtake you. When you step into the water, it is going to overtake you. And it was you have to have a level of commitment that says, I'm going to step in the water even if it overtakes me. And he connected that to ministry. He connected it to ministry. He said that there are people that are waiting for you to step in the water. Because they're back there. They're waiting for you to step in the water. They got the confidence in you as a person. You need to have the confidence in God that when you step in the water, because when you read the story, the Jordan parted and they crossed over on dry land. But you got to be so committed and so confident in the Eternal that when you step into the water, that the water is going to part and you won't be overtaken. You got to be so confident. You got to be so secure in your relationship with God that one, he's called you, two, that he's appointed you, three, he claims you, and four, he's commissioned you to do the work. And that whatever comes against you, that God is going to part that space so that you and the people can walk over on dry ground. And so I'm going to listen to that lesson again, because that thing was powerful. And I wish I brought my notes, because it's powerful. And there are leaders out there. There are leaders that are operating in ministry, and they're operating out of fear. I'm not fully operating because there's a level of fear in me when it comes to pastoring, to literally set up a Bible study that will happen continuously. There were people that were a part of the Bible study that I most recently started, I want to say last year, a year and a half ago, last year. And the people, when I stopped, when I brought it to a screeching halt and stopped, they ended up joining other churches. They joined other churches. And some people said to me, we were hoping that you started a church. And that thing crushed me. Like, I'm not saying that they won't come back to the ministry if I start a ministry, a church, and we function as a church. I'm not saying they won't come back, but the fact that they were waiting, like they really felt like we were having church. I can't even finish this video. Like, I really feel like I'm about to cry. But I want to say to somebody out there that will hear this, that you can't be fearful. And if you are fearful, you have to have so much confidence and so much faith in God that when you cross over, when it's time to cross the Jordan, that you have to have so much confidence in God that when you step into the water, your commitment to doing the work has to be so solidified that I understand that if I step into this water, if I step into do this ministry, that I could very well be overtaken. You are going to be overtaken. I could very well be overtaken, sorry. But my confidence is in God as well, that when I step into this, that I could be overtaken, but I also have enough confidence that God is going to part the sea for me, the Jordan. He's going to part the river, that I can cross over on dry ground. And so I need to apologize to some people. I want to apologize to Tony, Sway, Epps, Robert, a couple other people that, Toya, Earl. I want to apologize to you all. There were some other people, I can't remember names, that had enough confidence and faith in me to follow me ministry-wise. And then I just stopped it. And I stopped it out of fear. I was, and my nephews, Raven, Isaiah, I want to apologize to you all. It's fearful to do the work. And so I ask that you would please accept my apology. It was never my intent to start the work and stop the work and do all this other stuff, but it is overwhelming. The whole thought of me pastoring is overwhelming. So, just so it goes on record, I need to go because I feel like I'm about to cry. I can be a crybaby, but I love you. Have a good day.